Okay, so today we're going to show you how to change the pre-filter on your water softener system. So what we have here, this is the water softener part, and you can see the water coming in and out. And the pre-filter is upstream of that, so the water hits the pre-filter first, and then it goes to the softener. And so we're going to try to put this cartridge here inside this blue canister here. We're going to put a new one in. Now there's a couple of things I've done in preparation, because, for example, I'm not sure if we need a new O-ring or not. We won't know till we get it opened up. So I do have an extra O-ring that I may or may not need. We'll see if it looks good when we open it up. And here's the lube for the O-ring. Again, we may or may not need that. Also, another thing that I've done in my case at our house, when I turn off the water, which I'm going to turn this valve off and then we'll have no water at all in the house, it also turns off my hose bibs. And I'm going to want a little bit of water when I'm taking this off, because I want to rinse it out. And if I don't have any water, then there's no water. So what I've done is I've got a little bucket down below here that I cleaned out, and it's all nice and clean with a nice clean cup there. Just put a little water aside so when I have to rinse this out, I have some water. So I'm going to shut it off. And when you shut these off, you don't rush it real fast. You don't slam it. Just kind of, I like to, any kind of valve or mechanical equipment like that. All right, so now there's no water in the house, but there's still pressure in the system. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to take a little break in the video, and I'm going to go into the kitchen and turn the faucet on at the kitchen sink, and it's going to run for about 4 or 5 seconds, and then it's going to poop out on us. And then I'm going to leave that open also, so when we finally turn the water. Okay, so I just went into the kitchen sink, turned the faucet on, and left it open, left it on, ran for just a few seconds, and that was it. So notice that the new filter is still wrapped up in the plastic. When the time comes, I'm going to undo the plastic and put it in there. But you want to keep it clean. This is your water system. Also, before I started any of this, I went in and I washed my hands. I also cleaned this off with a rag. So now we're going to undo this. Here's the tool. I keep my tool on this little bungee cord hanging here. You might do yours a different way. Just keep it nearby. And I cleaned this off also so it's clean. So what I'm going to do, slide this up on there and get it as high up as you can. It won't go all the way. Different wrenches will go a little farther or not, but get it up there pretty good so it's snug. And then, as far as a lot of people aren't sure which direction to turn it, and it's lefty, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey is what everybody knows, but it's not that simple on this one, because that's true, but it's as if you were looking at it from sitting on the floor looking up on it. So the best way I can describe it is if the handle is sticking out to the right, you pull the handle towards you. So if you try real hard and try to get it loose and it doesn't get loose, you're probably doing it the wrong way. Now once you've got it started, you shouldn't need the tool again. And I can probably do that with my hands because I at least got it started. Also, as you'll see later in the video, when it's time to do it, to tighten it at the end, you don't use the tool at all. If you get it too tight with the tool, that's going to squish the O-ring, and you can probably get it tight enough just with your hands. We'll get to that in a little bit. So I'll put the tool down here. Now when I take this off, there's going to be a little bit of water, even though there's no pressure here. It's full of water, and so I've got a bucket here, just one of these, orange buckets that you get at the hardware store, and it's just a place that I can put it in without leaking all over, but I'm going to spill some water. Alright, so it got a little bit wet there, and so you can see a little bit of water's coming down there, but I don't have anything that's going to hurt. If you did, put a couple of towels down underneath there first, so that's not a problem. And so we'll take the filter out. And you can see how much dirtier that one is than the new one. Also, you should know that even if it doesn't look dirty, you should change these after 6 months. And that's because the carbon feature gets used up and you can't really see that. But the carbon is dechlorinating all the water. We're on city water here. So these should be changed every 6 months. If you're on a well, you get a little different kind. The procedure is the same. It doesn't have the carbon feature to it, but it just has the sediment feature, and it'll also look real dirty in about 6 months, but some wells are dirtier than others and you'll have to change them more often. So this is just going to get thrown away here now, so I'll put it off to the side. Now, as far as the housing goes, I see the O-ring there, but there's quite a bit of water in there, so I'm going to go spill that out first, and then I'm going to look closely at the O-ring, so I'll be right back. Alright, so I just walked out to the driveway and kind of tipped it over fairly gently. There, a little bit left in there. And now the main thing is I can see the O-ring. And I can see, I hope you can see that pretty well there, but the O-ring is nicely seated in the groove. And so I'm not going to change it this time because it's seated in there pretty nicely. If it were bulging out a little bit, or if it looked like it was flat and kind of smushed down from too much pressure, then yeah, I would put a new O-ring in. What I am going to do though is I'm going to put a little lubricant on the top of the O-ring, and that might be a little bit of overkill. I don't think you have to do that every time, but it certainly doesn't hurt, and it's a special kind of lube, so you can't just never use a petroleum product like Vaseline, but of course we sell the right kind and it's inexpensive and lasts a long time there. So I'm actually just going to put a little bit on my finger, and you just need a real tiny bit. And then I'm just going to kind of go around it like this, just at the top. I mean, if I were super picky or put an O-ring, then I'd lube the whole O-ring and pull it through my fingers. But I don't want to, once it's seated in the groove, I'd rather not mess with it. So just if you can see what I'm doing there. And that's enough, just to give it a nicer seal there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the plastic, tear off the plastic off of the new cartridge, and get ready to put it in here, and we'll show you that in just a second. Okay, so I've gotten rid of the filter and I've spilled the water out of here, and I look in there and I want to rinse this out just a little bit, and I don't want to clean it with soap or anything like that, and it'll be probably fine if I didn't do anything, but that's why I got a little bucket of water ahead of time, just so I can rinse it out. I just feel better to make it as clean as I can. So this was all clean water that I prepared ahead of time. And I'm just going to swish it around a little bit and then dump it out in the driveway again. Just an extra little rinse makes me feel good about it. Okay, now I keep a little pocket knife here that works for things like this. If not, they're kind of snug. You might tear it with your fingers, but you might have a little scissors or knife or something just to get ready. But I keep one of these little Swiss Army knives. And just kind of tears off and you throw the plastic away. Okay, there's no difference between the top and the bottom, so don't worry about that. And it's got these black gaskets, little rubber gaskets there, top and bottom. So I hold it in one hand, and there's a little post at the very bottom down here, and you see the hole there. So all I'm going to try to do is get the hole over the post, and you just have to kind of get it centered and wiggle that around just a little bit, and it'll get right on the post. And you might have to wiggle it around a little bit to get it on the post, but just turn it back and forth a little bit, and it'll seat on the post, and you'll feel it when it does. And when we snug it up on this end, there's a similar post on this one. So same thing, I'm going to bring it up from the bottom, and it tries to wiggle around there a little bit. And you'll see after you've done it a few times you get good at it, but you have to kind of feel at it to get it on the post. So I think I've got it on the post, but You can't see it once it's on there, so you're not sure, but when you start to turn it, if it turns nicely on there, then you'll know you got it on the post. Because if you try to turn it and it resists or it doesn't feel right, then no, just loosen it again till you get it centered on the post. Just wiggle it a little bit. But once you start turning it, you'll know if it's on the post, because it won't go on if you didn't otherwise do that. All right, so I'm going to tighten this up. It's real easy at first. Okay, now it's getting a little bit snug. I wouldn't call it tight yet. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to snug it some more, just my hands, no tool. I got about another 1/5 of a turn there, something like that. Now I'm going to give it just a little bit more. So you don't have to bear down and kill it. The O-ring makes the seal. Okay, and that should be plenty. I could make it tighter, but I'd rather not, because that compresses the O-ring and it should be sealed fine. Now, when I put this all back together, we'll find out if it leaks or not. And if it does leak, you don't just tighten it up a little bit more against the leak. What you need to do is start over. If it leaks just a little bit, turn the valve, turn the water off in the kitchen, unscrew the whole thing, and do it again. So you have to kind of repeat the process. Don't try to turn it against the pressure of the water trying to leak there. So you'll get a feel for that. Also, you'll learn that even if everything's fine here, I'm going to go back maybe after dinner and check it again and see if there's a leak, because the water pressure changes throughout the day. And I'm going to go back tomorrow again and I'm going to look again to see if there's a little bit of a leak. And if there is, I can just loosen it up, start over, and tighten it up again. But don't assume just because you got it right the first time, it's probably okay. But just in case, it's a good idea to check it a little bit later and the next day as well. All right, now I'm going to turn the water back on. And of course, I've got the faucet open in the kitchen, so the water is going to come out there. So one of the advantages of leaving that faucet open in the kitchen is that I won't get as much air in the system. Right now, there's air in the system because I opened this up, and so it'll spit a little bit when it comes out. But if I closed it, there'd be even more. So you're better off to just do it this way. So again, when I open this valve, not too quick. I'm even slower about doing it when I turn it back on than I was when I closed it. Watching for leaks. I don't see anything. That's good. The sound kind of changes as you open up the valve and then eventually open it up all the way. All right, so first things first, let's look for obvious leaks, and there aren't any. So in fact, I'm going to go back in the kitchen right now and I'm going to turn the faucet off now, and then we'll see if it leaks, because then we'll really be under pressure. Okay, so I closed the faucet in the sink, so now everything's under city water pressure now, 75 psi, maybe 85, whatever. There's, full pressure here, and I don't feel anything leaking. I don't feel any water there. I could get a paper towel and hold it if I wasn't sure. Yours might be less accessible and you can't see. Sometimes your filter will be behind other things, but one way or the other, you can figure out if there's little bubbles or a little bit of leak coming out, and it looks like there's not. So I think we're in pretty good shape here. Okay, just to make absolutely certain that there's no leaks, I actually took a paper towel because there was some water just from doing it, and ran the paper towel all around it, and still no leaks, but I'm going to come back again later. I mean, leaks don't get better, and again, if it leaks even the slightest little bubble, start over and do it again. I mean, don't have to pull the filter out and all, but don't tighten it against the pressure. Now, my whole house now is going to be carbon filtered, so all the different products you see in the market for your refrigerator door, those filters, the shower head filters, even the pitchers that you pour water into, or the one you screw on the end of your faucet, those are all just some version of a carbon filter, basically do the same thing as these. But by doing it here in the garage, everything downstream is treated, fully carbon filtered water, so that's a really good feature. This water is now going to go to the softener and get softened as I use it, but the carbon is actually a separate function, and it's nice to have all on its own. You don't need all those other filters, and inexpensive too. Every 6 months you change this. These cost about $30 at Sedeco, and you have whole house carbon filtering. Great feature, and so I feel good about that. In 6 months I'll see you again.